All right, everyone. So, hope you enjoyed the intro song. Next, we are just gonna play our little intro video. So here we go. Roll the thing, and then we'll intro Sami and Small Cap Science, and we'll get the show started. So eyes on, sound on. Make sure you listen to the intro.
GM Anon, welcome to today's episode of Market Capping. Before we begin, I just wanted to remind you that I am not your mom, and nor are any of the speakers on this show. Nothing you hear today is financial advice. You should be a big kid now. Make your own decisions, do your own research, and assume every crypto coin you buy will result in complete losses. If you ever plan on holding anyone other than yourself responsible for your choices, please navigate to the top of your browser window where you'll find the friendly red close button. And now, let the episode begin.
Boom. All right, there we go. Small Cap and Sami, you guys can unmute. Say hello.
What up, guys? What up? Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, I can hear you. Small Cap, you want to give us a little mic test?
I'm here. Hopefully the mic's working.
Yeah, everything
I
sounds great. Perfect.
I was panic scrambling to get the correct link out. I blew it, and then ADD was taking over and posted a link just to normal Twitch and not our specific one. So freaking out
Whoops.
trying to get the correct link out, but that's on me.
All good, all good. So yeah, welcome to today's episode of Market Capping. This is gonna be a big one. We have one of our favorite people in the space, 0x Sami, on call. Small Cap and I were both seed investors in his product, Redacted. He's been one of my favorite builders, and really excited to talk to him. I think to get things started, Sami, we just wanted to, instead of starting with a bunch of info about Butterfly and Redacted, everyone always talks about that stuff, but why don't we get started with general market sentiment? Outside of being a builder, I'm sure you also trade shitcoins, and I'm sure you're like deeply involved in crypto. Would love to hear what your thoughts on the market are, what you're trading today. Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah, right on. I mean, markets like pretty brutal out here. There's not much to trade, let's be honest. But like, I think mostly playing stuff related to like pegs right now. So looking at like the CVX FXS peg,
Right,
the ST ETH peg, that's
right.
been a big one. And then obviously like the CVX CRV peg, right? Like usually when there's like these crazy downturns and you can't find many buyers and stuff, right? Like a lot of these ones that do have like intrinsic value start to like deviate from peg, right? Because they can't find like buyers for like the other asset in general, right? So
Oh, that's a good
mostly
point.
focused on those ones right now.
Let's take a look at that. What is the CVX FXS peg at right now?
It's not doing too good.
Best way to see is just on Curve. I can bring it up for everyone.
Yeah, or llama. Um, pull it
Yeah,
up too.
I got it here. Oh, damn. Wow. Okay. This is
What's it
huge.
at?
So one
Yeah,
FXS gives you 1.15 CVX FXS. Whoa. Okay, so
yeah,
you get
yeah.
15% bonus buying CVX FXS instead of FXS. How much size can I put in this? Like if I buy like what's one FXS? It's like $4 right now. So if I buy 1,000, that's like 40 grand. Wow, it's still 15%. Damn, that's really good.
Yeah, it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. Like some of these, like honestly, all of these pegged ones, right? Like, then there's like the BV, CVX, and Badger, and in general, just like all of these ones that are going for like that sort of like liquid alternative. Like I think like right now, like it's like pretty rough for them, but at the same time, like like I guess like the like more advanced person like that can recognize like whether it's a real rapper or not. Like
Yeah.
you know, um, it's pretty good deals out there.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a user saying CVX FXS doesn't give you anything though. Um, what do you think?
I
Like,
mean,
what makes it repeg?
yeah, I mean, I think like in general, like as the CVX emissions like start to drop, like obviously you have that, right? Like from a yield perspective, it's always a good shout, just because you get like the benefits of the locked up FXS for like 4 years. Obviously
Yeah,
before you had like the FPIS airdrop, but like after that happened, like there was like a pretty big DPEG, right?
right.
And then yeah, like you sort of just get the fee stream in many ways. It's kind of like to compare to something like people are most familiar with, it's kind of like one of those Y tokens from Yearn, but just like with the benefit of you not having to lock. right?
Right.
I think like as the CVX emissions start to drop, like we'll probably have to start putting more utility towards like these convex wrappers.
Oh, damn.
Obviously, like
Yeah.
no one's ever commented on that, right? But like you see, something like M-Curve, right? Like the magic one, Abracadabra one,
Hmm.
SD Curve. Like a lot of the competitors that are going for like these liquid wrappers, like they're maintaining peg a lot better because obviously they have the voting rights, right? So obviously like Curve being Convex being like the team it is, like I'm sure recognizes that, right?
Right. Right.
So it wouldn't surprise me to see something like a direction in that something in that direction in the near future.
Okay. And like 2 weeks ago, what was it at? I don't know how to bring up a chart without Parsec. I don't have it open. But is it like usually sit
Um,
around 1.15, or has it like usually sitting around like 1.06 or something like that? And if we flip bullish, it'll get closer.
yeah, I do not know what it's been trading at. This is something I've just like started doing recently.
Oh, okay.
I
Nice.
know you can view it on. Let me drop the link here.
I was trying to pull it up as well. I mean, I think like what we're really seeing just like part of it comes from the nonstop tweets I've seen over the past few days of how like Curve is failing just from people who don't really understand that like really what's happening in the market is kind of a liquidity crisis. Like people, it's not that these tokens aren't backed 90% of the time. It's really just that liquidity is drying up. So if you have a wrapped or synthetic version of a token, like and you can't exit and you have a pretty large position, like people are scared, like that they're not going to be able to get out. So it's been a very, I want to say, plus EV trade, just like following a lot of the curve pools and seeing which ones are drying up, which ones are losing pegs. And like there's so much opportunity to be had there because of the liquidity crisis going on.
Right. And then you start thinking about like the second layer for a lot of these things, right? Like they have like a tougher time than even just like the native asset, right? So I guess like if you want to double down on things like FXS, like to me, like the liquid wrapper seems like a better
Right.
shout.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. I actually like that call. And I just have it on the screen here. But if you LP then CVX FXS, you get paid 40% APR in Convex, while Convex is at these prices. So that's
Yeah,
not
but
bad.
there's the IL, right? There's the IL because
Oh
like
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
depegging,
But like, how much
right?
IL
So
do you have? Like, if something goes from like 15 up plus 15%, like a 2x gives you 5% IL, right? So plus 15%'s got to give
yeah.
you like sub 1% IL, right?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad, but I guess like compared to the stable pools on Curve, like
Oh
you don't
yeah,
have
there's
any
no
IL,
IL.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, unless
yeah.
you're in UST, Keck.
Unless you're in USD.
Yeah, that IL is what's gonna kill you, right?
What have you like? Have you had any conversations with like I guess some of the founders or like of different projects that are kind of I want to say almost struggling with some of the liquidity issues? I mean, like the way I look at it is I feel like most of these issues could have been prevented. Like say your STE or I mean USDN is another one that's kind of struggling right now. Some of these pegs are somewhat being lost for like even like CVX CRV. Like what do you kind of think that leads the market in the direction of? Do you think more people are going to bribe heavier, or do you think they're going to have to find more utility for the underlying tokens? Like, I mean, like, what do you think really comes from, I guess, some of the issues?
Yeah, I mean, well, utility is always the golden question. Like it's the golden question, right? Obviously, like people are tackling utility in different ways. Obviously, like I think there was like everyone started off with like the farms, and like if you were early on farming, from a protocol perspective, like you're pretty good in liquidity, right? Because you were one of the early DeFi projects. You were able to farm like to the centralized exchanges, like your liquidity looked good and stuff, and like you managed to get like a Binance listing or something, right?
Right.
And then obviously like farms got super played out, and it didn't matter too much because it was all incentivized TVL, right? It wasn't real TVL. And then like you saw this like progression towards like bonding, um, which we like participated in like bonding and stuff. We were one of those projects.
Yeah.
Um, and then like bonding had its own downturns where people were botting it, and you obviously needed like ridiculous APYs to like support the dilution that was coming in from bonding. So that sort of saw like its own like downturn. Obviously, there's benefits to owning it rather than renting it, but at the same time, like I don't think it's been cracked fully. But when like to me, like I think like bribing is like the natural progression, like the third route, like a lot of projects should go. Just because like for someone like Badger, I tweeted this like not too long ago, right? Like Badger could go and put up they pair against like WBTC, right? They could like go and put up like some pool two rewards at like Badger, and no matter what that is, like they could have just gone to like Hidden Hand, like our project, right, and like put up that same amount of badger that they were going to before, and they would have seen like 23x the rewards in something that's not even their token, right?
So
Um,
yeah, do you think it's a misunderstanding, like, or do you think it's a knowledge gap? Like, why isn't everyone doing that then, if that's the case? Like, do you think it's just like the market doesn't quite get it, or that they want their own, I don't know, maybe own customer base to be the ones getting the rewards? Like what do you think it really is?
well, I think like there's a lot of projects like kind of in the same, like there's like a lot of projects in this sort of boat, right, that like want to like keep maintaining like on-chain liquidity. And I would like say that like a lot of the successful projects have gone this route, right? Like perhaps like they're not educated on it because it mostly started with like stable coins, but then like when CrvV2 came out and all of a sudden you could trade like volatile pairs, like you did start to see like an influx in like bribes for like a lot of these tokens, right? um and then obviously like balancers started like doing this, and we've even like started to like experiment with like beyond just DEXs, right? Like something like Tokemak for the reactors, or ribbon for like options vaults, or like exotic liquidity pools, and then even for things like like floor DAO or something like for NFTs, right? Like in general we're finding like all of the markets are just having like a ton of more efficiency with like these like sort of like bribing routes. But the problem is like a lot of these projects didn't own their liquidity, which
Right.
means like to do a complete migration over from like Uniswap or Sushi, which doesn't have this functionality, is like a pain in the ass, right? So like I think that's something that's been like holding it back, right? And you can't say
Yeah.
like Sushi would be successful in this because Sushi obviously is like more tailored towards some of the smaller caps compared to something like Balancer or Curve, which is like a bit more tailored towards like the major caps, where like you could like set up like a pretty good like bribing like flywheel, right?
Yeah. If you told me a year ago sushi would be where it is today, I'd be super sad, and two, I probably wouldn't believe you. But
Oh yeah,
I
I
mean,
would have never believed you. I'd be like, bro,
never.
this is the Dex. Like even during Trident, like did Trident even ship? That's what blows my mind.
Yeah.
I don't even
It,
know where it is. It's been like
I think
forever.
there's like a Trident beta on Polygon, was it?
Right.
Um
I'm
I
not
think
even
they
sure.
started. Yeah, I mean it's a tricky situation with them, right? Like this is a problem like a lot of DAOs have, and I think for them like it just got publicized a lot more, right? Obviously like everyone wants like a decentralized system, but like you want to ship things like Trident, which are like
Yeah.
major PM issues, right? If anyone's been a PM in the past, like this is like a huge PM job, right? And like you
Right.
can't depend on like a DAO to ship something like this, right? So
Yeah.
it's a problem, but I think Sushi will like get on their own 2 feet eventually, right?
Okay, but like counter example is Redacted. You guys are shipping like mad. Like you have Hidden Hand, you have Pyrex, you have like this other stuff you were alluding to earlier before we were on the call. How are you shipping while also being a DAO?
Yeah, I mean, I think we try and approach it in like many different ways. We've experimented a lot, right? Um, with something like Hidden Hand, like we sort of like told the DAO how it was, right? Like we have like people that we consider like core contributors, right? And obviously like
Yeah.
anyone from the DAO can like get involved. But like we make it like very clear that like this DAO operates like a bit different than something that tries to like put up this like smoke and mirrors that says like the community builds it and stuff like that, right? I think we're just pretty frank and say like we have these team members, we have these people that have stepped up from the community, and this is like their project, and like we're gonna sort of let them like build in silence, like make sure we don't get front run on different things, and when it's ready, we're going to get it out to you, right? So I think it's like you have to find like a really good balance, right? Like Sushi's issue was that I think it leaned way too much towards like the centralized side. And then like other DAOs like have the issue where they lean too much towards the decentralized side where like no one's even going to build it, right?
Right.
So I think there's always like, and we're learning too, right? Like we're not perfect either. But like, I think there's like a perfect balance where you can just bring in like some community members, like get like the community involved, plus like, depend on like people that are like being paid by the DAO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think short answer is he keeps the dev team just chained to their desks, and we're
all
building in
all
silence.
will go well.
Means he
There you
doesn't
go.
have to
Finally
do
locked
anything.
in.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. I guess question based off of that though. I mean, you were like Masari before this role and launching Butterfly. I guess what's been one of the most surprising like things about, or maybe even hardest things about being a founder in the space over the past really, I would say half a year.
um Yeah, I mean, I'm like not like I guess like it was always a question to me like why like a lot of people go like um this is like a weird answer, eh? Like it was always like a question like why like a lot of founders go like anon and stuff, and I don't think it's actually because of like wanting to like hide from anyone. It's actually just like I think like a lot of founders struggle like being in like the public light or something, right? Like a lot of people like don't want their name to be like closely associated with it because they're sort of like scared or they don't know if they want to like move on later and stuff. And like I guess like obviously I'm not an anon, like my name's actually Sami, but like you know I noticed that like a lot of founders like do actually do that, right? Where, like like if something's not working out, like the solution for like a lot of people is like launching another token, which just doesn't make any sense to me.
It,
Yeah.
um
it's so funny because like it's like if projects aren't working out, what people do is they say, fuck it, let's launch another project, right? And then the old project goes away. And then if
I
projects
mean,
are
yeah.
working out, they say, oh, this project worked really well, let's launch another token. So it's like I feel like no matter which direction you go in, everyone's incentivized to just launch another token. Like I was talking to someone the other day and he was telling me that like you build a lending project and the lending project will make a bunch of money, and that's cool. But what you then to make get more TVL and to get more fees and to be even more profitable, the best thing to do is just launch a lending project on another chain under another name and do a launch again, instead of like trying to grow the original lending project, which is really interesting. And I actually think like what you're saying, where like the person isn't doxxed, does help with that because then like communities hold that person responsible for like, oh, you should be building this. Why are you not building this? Whereas if you're an anon, you can kind of just make a new anon account and then launch another business, which is a little sketchy.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm pretty straight about it, right? Like I think like it's kind of well known. I work on two projects, right? I work on Redacted and I work on New Order, right?
Right.
And I'm just like frank. I'm just like frank with I guess like the people that want to support either of those projects, right? And I think like there's no harm in like launching another project, right? Like for example, like Redacted, like it's just obvious, right? Like the own fork model was like not the right path forward. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. Like you like sometimes you just lose PMF. This is how normal business works, right? Like
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you like go launch another token. Like you have to make the
You
project
make it
whole, right? So
work.
like
Yeah. You
no,
pivot.
but like
Yeah.
like Hidden Hand, right? Like Hidden Hand, for
Yeah.
example, like that's on a separate website, right? But that doesn't mean it needs its own token, right? Like
No, it's owned
you
by
just like accrue
Redacted.
the
It's still
yeah,
Redacted.
yeah,
Redacted holders get
yeah,
profits
yeah,
from it. Yeah. And
yeah, yeah,
at,
yeah.
at the end of the day,
So
if people want to sell off their Redacted so hard, it's just opportunity for buyers, right? The market will find a natural place. As builders, as long as you're like well funded and you have the capital, you can continue to like ship product, and then one of them will find product market fit, and then that's great. I think just a lot of crypto investors aren't used to investing this early in the business's life cycle. Like in seed investing, it often takes years to find PMF. It's not like investing in like the
mhm.
stock market where like the business has revenues, is profitable. You can't really value a lot of seed stuff like just because they have revenues, because like literally 2 weeks later those revenues could be gone. What matters like how
Yeah,
sustainable they
yeah,
are, and that's PMF, right?
right. I mean, like like Aave did this in like a weird way, right? Like Aave didn't do the path of like launching like multiple projects on like different websites, but like like Ethland, it was more of a branding thing, right? Like if anyone remembers like Ethland, like they eventually like pivoted into Aave, just like a new branding and stuff like that, and then they introduced things like flash loans and then the LP lending markets, and like they built like a bunch of stuff like under the Aave family, right?
Yeah.
And then like now you obviously have Lens, and like this is like an Aave project, right? And I think like this is the path like most people should be taking, right? But then and hopefully like the bear market helps with that, right? Because you can't just launch like a new token nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's great.
You're
Okay.
you're
Um,
outside of the bull market where everything just goes up only.
exactly.
So you have to
Yeah.
actually provide value. And I mean, like, I think one of the thesis, like you wrote it, the base plate thesis that I actually go back to pretty much all the time. And I mean, like just being able to actually extract value out of other protocols, like anyone who's able to do that. And I think it's one of the things that Butterfly is really starting to do well, like heading into V2. Like that's really what I look for in projects. And like I think there's going to be a point here where a lot of DeFi projects end up way oversold because they are actually being able to extract value out of projects, and probably it's one of the first times in any crypto life cycle where that's the case. In the past, like past cycles, like you weren't really earning off of other projects. It was a lot of speculation price, and we're finally at the point we're getting to utility. So I mean, I think that's one of the things that I'm really kind of excited about what you guys have been building. But that comes
Yeah.
from all the different actual, I guess, shipping products that you guys have been dropping. But
I mean, you know, like it's a problem for like a lot of projects because there's not like something you can point to directly. You know, something like Uniswap, like how do you value Uniswap, right? Like they don't accrue any
I don't.
fees, right? And there's no treasury, right? There is a
Right.
treasury, but it's all uni tokens, right? So I think like fundamentals will like start to become a thing. Like one could hope like fundamentals start to become a real thing.
So
I,
what are
I
Going
believe
forward
it.
yeah,
to be fair.
like what are those fundamentals? So if I look at something like Aave, right? I think Aave has like $50 million in their treasury, right? But they're valued
Mm,
at like $1 billion. So what's that? Like
yeah.
something like 20x treasury. But on the other hand, you have projects like Butterfly, where you have like more in your treasury, in if you take the USD value of all the assets, excluding Butterfly, than you have like market cap. So it's like some stuff is valued at like 20x its treasury, and other stuff is valued at less than its treasury. But both are building and both have revenues. So it feels like this space just haven't figured out like how to properly value something.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Like I think like obviously like Aave has that I wouldn't even call it a premium, right? Like there is things that like TVL like go into it. I don't think we should shoot for like one TVL to market cap, right? But I think there's different things that go into Aave, sort of like the other projects that like have built on top of it. Sort of like you could consider like Lens now something that like Aave owns, right?
Yeah,
So sort of like equity. Obviously you have like institutional capital arrangements that are like flowing in through Aave. Um, and I think like, you know, like with Redacted, like we're early, like we're only like a couple months old, you know, like it doesn't matter necessarily what the treasury is. Like treasury, we're not like the treasury can go up or down, right? Like actually it's more, I think like for now, like our goal like always since launch is finding like things that like really connect with people. We hope like Hidden Hand and Pyrex is that, but if not, there's other things in the pipeline. And I think like as those things start to become more established and then all of a sudden like Hidden Hand is like tapped into every single DeFi ecosystem, then like the treasury isn't as relevant, you know.
yeah,
um
yeah. That's why I
because
love. That's why I love the
there's just
products
other
you're
factors
launching.
at play.
Yeah, like Hidden Hand, Pyrex, all the businesses you're launching, they don't. You don't need to have. You don't need to have like bonding or anything like that. You don't need to have like fake revenues from like people are trading my token. These are going to be real revenues that people are paying to the treasury because they're using your services, right? And that's like the even in real life, like those are the best businesses, and those businesses work because they're businesses that make other people money. So like if I'm building a Shopify app and I help a person make an extra $50, they're gonna have no issue paying me $20 a month because it's basically just free money. If they didn't have that app, they wouldn't have the free money. If they did that, have that
Mhm.
app, they get the free money, right? Those are the best businesses.
Right.
Whereas if you make an iPhone app and it doesn't make people free money, they're gonna like spend a week deciding they spend $5 on it. But the products you're building are oftentimes just like free money for people. It's like, do you want your future bribes now? Yes or no, right? Or
Yeah.
do you want to be bribed to vote? Yes or no? And in either way, it's like obviously always yes. So then it's like literally free money for people, and those are the products that no matter what the condition, people are going to use.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's like a
yeah.
massive piece of it is like you look at Uniswap, and I was actually just looking it up because I thought I had heard it, but they just crossed $1 trillion in volume. So like that's
Yeah,
something to be said. Like even if like it's like, hey, when I look at their token, I don't really know what it does. I'm sure you have governance and some other things like that, like it can provide value, but almost nobody has enough uni to actually make a government proposal. So like it's one of those things where if you're betting on future value, they can take a small fee and like you can probably print money if you own enough Uniswap
yeah,
and like open up a fee model. But like that also doesn't keep users or people buying your token involved short term.
yeah.
They
Well,
kind of have
Yeah.
the first mover advantage, but like I think if you're trying to build through something like a bear market, employ a team without just like giving up a ton of equity, I think if you really want to go more of the decentralized route, it has to be more similar to like what you guys are really doing and providing value to
And
holders.
there's like a, you know, like one thing that's like really important to like me at least, which could justify, you talked about like Avi being like a 20x premium over like NAV, right?
yeah,
Like one thing that's like really important to me is like finding PMF. And to me, like PMF in DeFi is this notion of like non-incentivized TVL. So,
right.
you know, Uniswap, like people use Uniswap without them having to push Uni tokens to the TVL. Aave, same thing. Like when we're building, right, like we try to aspire like some of these guys, right? Regardless of what the token price is, because eventually, obviously, like the token will end up accruing fees, like one day or another, right? Um, and I think like non-incentivized TVL is like such a big thing that like no one talks about, right? Like we are really happy with like the adoption Hidden Hand has, because we haven't put a single dollar of butterfly towards it, you know, like people are
Yeah.
using it naturally.
Yeah.
And I think that could justify a premium on like a token price, because that means your project has like naturally found PMF without incentives, right?
Yeah.
And this was this was like actually like a good talking point for like Spell, right? Like Spell, like a lot of people did flag this, that like, you know, they were printing, like they were making money, but like the TVL wasn't coming in without Spell incentives, right?
Right.
So I think like I think that's when that started to come to life for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, they
What do
mostly need the spell incentives for liquidity because their product didn't work unless they had deep liquidity for people to like loop dump MIMs for other stables.
Right, right. But you could, okay, yeah, fair enough.
what are your thoughts on, I guess, Abra and like Spell? Like we've touched on that on the last couple actual episodes. I mean, I think there's some big moves being made there with like MCRV getting whitelisted, with CRV. Curious of your opinion. Like, do you guys plan on, accumulating any of that, or like, what are your thoughts on where that stands?
Yeah, I mean, Redacted is under like a bit of a pivot where we're trying now to like not take such high conviction bets on like certain ecosystems. I think that was like a flaw with like V1, right? Where like essentially the whole product revolved around like how much CVX we owned, how much CRV we owned, like
Right.
stuff like that, right? And going into V2, like we're taking this step back and like becoming you know, like we're not putting any conviction into anything, right? Like with Hidden Hand, like anyone can use it, Pyrex, anyone can integrate it, right? And like actually, like, you know, we'd love to work with Spell if there was like a fit there between like Hidden Hand or Pyrex, right? Like, and that's how we would like accumulate
Right.
Spell, right? Like if they're building the things that like our products use, like we want to take a position in Spell because obviously they're working with us, right?
Right.
But like I don't think it's a question anymore for any project that like we'd be giving people Butterfly to own that token.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Okay, while we're talking about other tokens, Convex, is this thing bottomed? Like, what's your market take on that? Or are you supposed to wait for the unlock to buy? Or like, yeah.
Yeah. CVX is like an interesting one. Hey, like obviously like a lot of people are like really scared about the unlock, right? Because if,
Yeah.
like a few months ago they had that like the bug in the contract where they had to unlock everyone. And you know, the thing is like I think there's like a lot of people I've talked to are like ready for like the unlock to happen. But
Yeah.
the thing is like I don't know if like actually like the unlock will like change too much, like my
That's what I
personal
mean. It's like
opinion.
if I unlocked here, would I be selling? I'd be like, damn, like I just got destroyed.
Like
Like
bro,
I might as well just wait now.
bro, like a lot of like actually like there wasn't too many eyes on CVX when like that first major unlock happened from the bug.
Yeah.
And like bro, I remember that shit. Like it was um like the whole
It was
like
scary.
this
Yeah.
Convex Discord was a mess. Like every single like Convex was 100% unlocked, and there
Yeah.
was a sell off obviously, right? But like it wasn't that bad, you know. Like it's not as bad as like people are treating it now.
Yeah. And
Um
and and all of that got relocked. So those are like the most bullish people, they didn't
yeah,
sell the mass unlocking. They all relocked. So that
I
definitely
mean they
says
locked in
something.
the first place, you know. Like
Yeah.
they got
Yeah.
all their tokens out, and the price was down 30%, and like majority of people didn't run, right? So
Right.
you'd assume if someone locked you their tokens for like 4 months, which is very long in DeFi, like they have conviction in the system. And like, you know, like actually like there was some really interesting Nansen board, I'll try and find it. Like a lot of the people that are like locked right now like have just been adding CVX
Oh
on the
wow.
dip, right? Like so yeah, I mean it's,
I've
I'm sure
added some.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And do you think
So
there's a bunch of people that are short waiting for the unlock? And like, are those people just gonna get fucked? Like they have to close their shorts? Or do you think,
no, I mean they're not going to
nah?
get fucked, right? Like it's definitely gonna, I think it's going to go down on the unlock like for
Oh,
obvious
okay.
reasons.
Yeah.
But like, you know, not as bad as like people think it is. Like I think people think it's going to die or something, right? Like
Right.
it's
I think
just
Okay.
like
I think
obvious.
the problem is just like delayed buy pressure too. Like nobody's
Yeah,
buying
yeah,
here because of that. So like
yeah,
everybody
that's
who's
true.
on the sidelines is on the sidelines. Like myself, like I'm like, hey, I want to accumulate a bunch more, but like there's no point in me aping in now when I know a bunch of people are on offload. So I think it'll
This
bounce
is
pretty heavily. I don't know. That's I think it's a pretty I feel pretty safe about buying the unlock personally.
this is like a problem that's coming to light with like V tokens, right? Like a lot of people started launching like V tokens, and then like day one they launch, like a lot of supply gets locked, right? And then people don't think about what happens when they do unlock, right? Like this is you know, Joey from Tribe actually said something about it before. I forget where he said it, but like, you know, like with locks, like a lot of the time, like really like what we should be doing is making locks so that you can't game governance. but a lot of people think of it as like a number go up technology when it's really not. Actually, what you're doing is you're just compiling farmers and then like putting them all at the same date, right? Or you're just delaying the inevitable, right? So everyone knows like these token incentives are not sustainable, and like the real reason you make something like a VE token is actually to build like conviction within the system so that people can have like greater governance say for like the more conviction they have. That was the original purpose, right?
Okay.
It's not like that much of a number go up because sellers still have tokens, right?
And how do you value Convex? Like, do you say like, okay, this is my bribes revenue. This is how much Curve they have. This is how much FXS they have. This is like a dollar price I should be willing to pay for it, or is it just kind of like gut feeling?
We've worked on it internally, sort of like a valuation model for Convex. We're hoping to put it out as like a report eventually, but I mean, there's a bunch of different factors at play: how much CVX they own, how much TVL they, how much like liquidity they direct, right?
Yeah,
So every gauge, like how much TVL can they generate based on like a CVX going towards that LP, and it
right.
fluctuates a lot. That's why I don't have like the exact numbers, but um, I mean, it's definitely under like what I value it right now. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
okay, that's good.
what are your thoughts on like I mean I know like the unlock's a big piece of it, but do you worry at all about bribes? I mean we had Frax on, Sam from Frax, and discussing like how there's such a large portion of the ecosystem. Like, do you worry that there aren't like larger contributors outside of Frax currently, or like how's the bribe market really going to grow for CVX to make sure that it has value just through some of the APRs? What's your thought process there?
Yeah, bribes. Well, the thing is with the bribes was that like it got like super hot, right? And
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of people really realized why it got hot in the first place. It was because you were getting more than $1 of emissions,
right.
for like,
Yeah, so the bribes
that
are
was the
really
that was the
heavily
main reason.
reliant on convex price.
Yeah, and then everyone started bribing, and then like
Yeah, it's way
naturally as the
down.
emissions dropped, and naturally as the emissions dropped, like all of a sudden you're not even getting $1. It would have been cheaper for you to just do a pool too.
Right, it's like
So you would
1/10.
assume.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So you would
Wow.
just assume that like you find like a market like equilibrium eventually, right? Where there's like always an amount of bribers where like the emissions are above $1, right? You
Hmm.
would assume it to sort of like have like this yield arbitrage event for people, right? But I
Right.
think like a lot of people like a lot of people went blind into it because it was really hot,
Hmm.
right? But I think it'll get on its own 2 feet eventually as people start to realize what's going on.
Yeah, it feels like the flywheel worked in both ways, you know? Like back when Convex was these prices, but at that time when it was these prices before the whole send, Curve was like 3 times more expensive as well, right? So like the convex curve
Mhm.
ratio was kind of broken, whereas now Curve is like way cheaper than before. So I feel like the convex curve ratio is like, a little more healthy. And that's what made the like flywheel kind of kick off to the upside. And then the loss of bribes kind of kicked the flywheel off to the downside because as convex got cheaper, bribes were less profitable, so people bribe less, and so on. What do you think makes this like flywheel kick off positive again?
I think the more markets like Convex integrates, obviously they have like a bit of a challenge on their hands now with like emissions dropping. But I think like the more like markets they tap into,
Yeah,
like obviously they did that like expansion to Frax,
right.
and now they're starting to roll out some of the Frax pools. But I think if they can go beyond Curve into like some of the other maybe the ones like we're using for like Hidden Hand, that would be dope as fuck. But like like the other ones too, I think like that's when Convex starts to become more valuable because all of a sudden it's not just dependent on just CRV, and you
Yeah,
can have access to like multiple different governance tokens and their
right.
votes too.
So they could
And
do
that's where
like
the value
balancer,
of.
ribbon, these anything that hidden hand is doing, they should probably also be able to do.
I mean, people are eating their lunch, right? Like you're seeing a new
Yeah,
Convex fork every day for different
yeah. So
projects,
what do
right?
you think about like Aura?
Um,
Like, do you think Aura beats them for balancer?
well, I'm like super bullish on Aura, right? Like those are they're like the homies, right? And like like Aura is actually doing this, right? If you go to the Aura website, you can see like they've just started with balancer, right? But I think they've
Yeah,
recognized that like in order for the Aura to maintain its value, what'll happen to Convex will happen to like all these other Convex forks, right? And actually for them to like increase the demand for Aura, they have to tap into like multiple different markets, right? While the
right,
emissions are still super high. And then all
right.
of a sudden this was like OG butterfly stuff, but like the idea was like, you have like this index of like multiple governance tokens and like you're diversified, right?
Yeah,
And then there's multiple reasons for you to buy and direct like that convex token. depending on like what market is hot for like liquidity, right? We're seeing a bunch of people jump to like Balancer now. And Aura can obviously like, like succeed there. But I think like in order for Aura to succeed or Convex to succeed, like if someone else is doing this type of like PE model, like they need to get there, right?
Right.
They need to get there first so that there's more reasons for you to like use CVX, right?
This is the Mackie project, right? Is there I think they were doing a initial sale, like what's the one that ticks down?
LBP, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it just
LVP.
ended.
Oh, it just ended. Where did it end?
I don't want to say a
Ooh,
number because I don't
89
know.
cents. Yeah, I got it open here.
89 cents, yeah.
Oh, that's not bad.
Um,
It's 100 million Aura. So nice. 89
Do you
mil
buy
FTV.
DCF?
I remember I was looking at it and I was like, I even talked about it in Anita Discord, but the last few days I got so thrown off by ETH prices.
Yeah.
All I was doing was bidding ETH, but like I didn't know it ended. If it was still open, I probably would have. But like I think obviously there'll be a healthy secondary. But yeah, I think Mackey's involved in this project. I saw him like sharing it in his Telegram. Obviously, if you think it's good, I need to do a deeper dive here. But I always thought of it as convex for balancer. It sounds like it's actually doing a lot more than just that.
maybe the comms could be a bit better. Hey, like I think like they obviously have like a grander vision. The problem is like they
Yeah.
don't know what they want to expand to next, right?
Right.
But I think like the more tokens they can like accumulate and like obviously like LP issues, like LP funds become an issue, but like if they can get there like first and just like quickly become like the major holder, then obviously like they'll win in like a lot of markets, right?
Right.
Which I think like Convex has to do now to like sort of keep growing their market, right?
Right.
But this is not bad. Hey, like 89 cents would imply like 90 million FTV or something. So we'll see how much like BAL they suck up.
Right.
What would be their circulating at that? Do you know? Like I can't read.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Something to look
I'll have
into.
to
We
take
can
a
talk
look.
about it Friday. That'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one to dive into Friday. And yeah, for all of you out there, we'll do an alpha call on Friday and we can dive into some of the more individual projects with me and DCF. But so Sami, you're talking about like expansion. Where do you really see, I guess, Convex, Curve, or even Butterfly really expanding from like a multi-chain standpoint? Is it going to be like layer 0? Are you going to work with maybe STG who's going the V model, or where do you see expansion going across chain?
Yeah, I can't speak for like Curve or Convex. Curve has obviously been going multi-chain, right? Like deploying on multiple different chains. They are like fighting against like a lot of like these like Uni V2 native forks on like the other chains, but I think like they'll figure it out eventually. As like stablecoins start to become bigger on these other chains, but or Convex for that matter. But I think like for Redacted, right, like it goes back to what I was saying before about making like super like composable like apps, right? So something like Hidden Hand like is coming to Arbitrum, right? Like does Butterfly liquidity need to be there? Like maybe, right? Like that's a question for like the community. But like the thing is like we can expand to these chains like really easily. And like we can like essentially get onto like any EVM chain with like very small tweaks to like the smart contracts for Pyrex or Hidden Hand, right? So like Hidden Hand, like in the near future, will like be on Arbitrum first. We're talking with like the homies at Tracer DAO, like their V
Oh,
stuff,
nice.
and like GMX would be pretty dope, right? Like we'll see what they can do with like GLPs and stuff like that.
Nice.
And then like that
Vesta.
doesn't limit us just at Arbitrum, right? Vesta could be dope. Um, right? Like that, like you can just apply that to any other chain, right? Like we want to make Hidden Hand a product where actually like we don't even have to like be developing the markets ourselves. Like we want to make it in a way where like you can deploy your own Hidden Hand market just off the UI.
Wow.
So once it gets to that stage, right, like it doesn't even matter what chains like we're putting efforts on. Like if there's like adoption on these other chains and they want bribe markets, like they can just do it through our UI, right?
Yeah. This is like a
What's
permissionless
that process?
bribe market. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's sick. What's that? I would say process look like now. Is it a day, a few weeks, like to stand up if you're like a project founder trying to leverage Hidden Hand?
It's really simple for people who have like okay, so there's like frameworks, right? You have like the Tokemak model. Shout out DCF for giving us Rotomac.
Oh yeah.
But you have like you have like the Tokemak model, you have like the Convex model, you have like the Curve model, right? And like projects are basically like picking one of the three, right? Like you have these long ass logs, so you have like the 16-week locks, and like really it's actually pretty simple. because like if it's like the exact same model, like it's really just changing the token like addresses. But like something that's been holding back, like we were exploring it for like Tribe, right? X Tribe, and that sort of like whole thing where you can direct like Tribe emissions to like fuse pools, and it's a bit different, right?
Yeah.
So something like that, like a custom implementation, like we are working on them like with the team and like making sure it's like all proper, and then that's like something that has to get sent off for like audit, right? But we're trying now to like work with like all the hot projects that are launching. So something like Aura, like I think that was like the only DeFi project that launched like this past week. Like Hidden Hand is there, like it's like boom, like it's ready in like a day or something, right?
Right.
Citadel, which is like the upcoming one from Badger DAO,
Yeah.
they have like over like $3 million in bribes. All right.
Wow.
That's like 10% of our. That's like more than 10% of our market cap, just like coming in through Hidden Hand, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And
Wait, Citadel is
uh,
using Hidden Hand right now?
Citadel will be using Hidden Hand for the Knighting event. Yeah.
Oh, they'll use it for the event. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So then there's that, right? So like all of these ones that are like very simple, just like, and Citadel is something a bit more like Tokemak's like core events, right?
Yeah.
So if they're using like these like common practices, right, like it's very easy for us to just like integrate them.
Damn, that's really good.
Yeah, it takes like, honestly, it doesn't take long. It's honestly like more like a UI thing than it is, I guess, smart contracting.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. So I mean, that brings up like a good point. Like I mean, if Citadel's already bribing like 3 million, I think I looked in it like current bribes that show and like Hidden Hand like as of today are like 400K. That's without Frax that I think launches tomorrow. But like, have you done any estimates on like what you think like yearly revenues of Hidden Hand might be? Even if there's some speculation in there.
It's a moving target because a lot of it depends on like market conditions, right? A lot of it depends on like what's the new Hidden Hand markets we develop. And just to be frank, like we didn't expect Balancer to be like the biggest bribe market like at launch or something, right? And then like they did, right? And it also really depends on like the external ecosystems. The nice thing is that like it doesn't matter who wins, like we're everywhere, right? So it doesn't necessarily like matter that much for us, like who ends up pulling in the most revenue. For the butterfly holders, like they start to see like all the revenue that's generated is like turned into ETH and like streamed out to like the butterfly holders.
Yeah.
So they're getting like an APY in ETH, and then for us, like we don't have to go super hard on like bonding. We don't have to even do bonding anymore. Like if a project is winning and succeeding and they're using Hidden Hand, like we have exposure there, right? So
yeah, and you get 4% of all bribes. Like that's awesome. I think that number is like better than most people realize. If you can, for every $1 million of bribes you process, you make like, what is it? 4K?
40K.
40K. Yeah, there you go, off by 10. Yeah, that's insane. So like just talk one thing like Citadel, if that's 3 million, you're making like what, 120 grand just off that bribing event.
So just bribes on the platform now and Citadel, it's like 160K of earnings. So that like of that,
my math sounds wrong. That sounds so high. That's crazy.
I didn't do the math either.
Yeah.
I have the calculator up, so I'm cheating.
That's why it's like hard to do like estimations, right? Because it's like Citadel, like there will be bribes after the Knighting event, right? But like at the same time, like there's like these mass events that just happen, right? And we're there for them, obviously, right? But you can't like project into the future, like what's the next like project that's launching or something, right?
Yeah. 4% of 3 million is 120K. Jesus Christ, that's good. That's a nice number. And all that comes to butterfly stakers. And its stables. Wow, that's real revenues. Like that. You can't fuck with that.
It's half of that goes to like what will be
whatever.
butterfly holders.
Half comes to the treasury though, and half comes like directly to you. Do whatever you want with. But at the end of the day, the treasury backs your token, right?
No.
Okay, not in the literal sense. Don't worry, I'm not gonna RFP you, but like the treasury backs your token.
Okay,
in a value sense.
Not to me. But yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that actually, because like people always ask me like, is Redacted under RFE? Would love to just hear like how do you think about that? Like if you look up the Redacted metrics, there's like 17 mil in market cap, 20 mil in the treasury. Obviously, you've said many times there's no backing, like nothing like that. But like all of the money that is being in the treasury is being used for butterfly holders, right? Like the bribes you earn from Convex are going to go to like the bribe locked butterfly holders, right? Or the revenues you get from Tokemak are probably going to go to butterfly holders too. In a way, isn't it still backed just by the revenues?
Okay, right. Like I think backed is like a like it's an interesting term, right? Like I think if we weren't an own fork, like I don't think like in our infancy, like we were an own fork, right? But like if we weren't that, like I don't think people would even think about it like that. Like no one looks at like who's
Like
like
Aave,
another big
50
project.
million in treasury. No one says, "Oh, there's 50 million
Yeah.
there. Should trade at treasury
Yeah,
value."
or like someone who like launched like same time as us, like the guys at JPEG or something. Like no one goes to them and be like, hey, just close your operations and just give us everything in the treasury, right? Like that's not how DeFi
Yeah,
works, right?
yeah,
Like we're not like our token price, like we're not a reserve currency like Ohm is, right? Like
yeah.
Ohm
It
is a different
depends. It
shout.
depends on what you advertise. Like, if Ohm did advertise RFE, this is the lowest the token can go, and so on and so forth. So I don't think, like, I think
And I
they
think
have
all
to
the
protect it.
forks,
Yeah,
like all the forex that like maybe like for us, like it was never about like being a reserve currency, right? Like we used it to bootstrap the treasury so that we
yeah,
could do things like Pyrex without diluting people and stuff, right?
right.
um and like like if we were a reserve currency, there would be like backing there, right? It's the same thing as like a stable coin,
Yeah,
but like it's not like this is like butterfly has nothing to do with like the price of butterfly has nothing to do with like the tokens in the treasury. Like obviously like you can value it like that. I think you should value all DeFi projects like that.
yeah.
But like like it's not like our operations don't revolve around like the
No,
backing, right? Yeah.
your operations don't, but all of the treasury you have in value is for butterfly holders at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say I
And
had a bunch of looks rare in my treasury, and I staked that looks and got a bunch of ETH. All of that ETH would be for holders of my token, right? In
mhm.
the same kind of way. So if I'm buying, am I going to buy a looks and stake it, or am I going to buy this product with more looks than its market cap and stake it and still get all the same revenues? Obviously, I'd rather buy the product. That's kind of like how I see this.
Yeah, I think that's like a good shout. Hey, like I think it's definitely like a good metric to use to like value a project, right? But I don't think it's like a good metric to use to like determine like every single thing about our project, right? Like
Yeah,
like obviously we have things like Hidden Hand and Pyrex that are like
yeah,
generating like real revenue, non-incentivized like
yeah,
TVL, right? Like these are
yeah.
like real things, like we RFE. Obviously, like right now, it wouldn't even be worth it to RFE. Like we usually trade like just above it, just under the treasury. But
Yeah,
like it wouldn't be worth it to like RFE. And the other thing is that F in RFE is like not true here at all, right? Like we
yeah.
don't have
It's
stables.
RV.
Well, we
There's
do.
no stables.
We do have staples, right? Like, but like at the same time, like majority of it is like CVX things that we're like actively using. Like these are things that like create our flywheel, right? Like it's not things
Yeah,
that are used to back the token, right? Like we're not wasting these resources on buybacks or something stupid like that, right? Like
yeah. You can
this
see
is how
it
we
here
fuel.
in the policy metrics. It's mostly convex curve, then your own LP, then ohm, and then USDC. So it's like 700K USDC. But the rest of it is
Mm,
like risk on stuff that's going to make revenues or be used to make your products better, by like staking in them and things like that, and then that delivers value back to holders.
yeah, yeah, hundos.
So for me,
I
the way
mean,
I think about it is like if I'm gonna buy Convex or I'm gonna buy if I'm about to buy Convex, what I usually look at is like where is Redacted trading, and if I see that Redacted is trading like below it's like quote not backing below its treasury, I'm like I would rather just buy Redacted. It feels like leveraged Convex, especially if I'm gonna stake the Convex.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean we're
I'm
working on it, right? Like I think like V1, like that would have definitely been a good shout. Like
Hmm.
but like I think like V2, like we're trying to stray as far away as that from as possible.
Right, right.
I mean, just off of revenue, like that's pretty insane. Like if you're taking, like I was just running some math, like if you're doing like 4 million of bribes a month, like and that's just like some estimates based off of like what's already out there, and I'm sure you're actually probably going to do more than that. But like, I mean, that's about $50 million a year. And I mean, sure, you're getting like 4% of that, but I mean, like a large piece of that ends up back with like the butterfly holders. When you're talking RL butterfly, and then on
Right.
top of it, you have two other revenue streams with Pyrex, and then you have the Treasury that's also bribing. Like you're going to be earning like a nice chunk of ETH based
Yeah.
off of like the current circulating supply. So, I mean, it's like it's almost a little bit of a diversity play outside of Convex. Like if you're a bit iffy on like where some of Convex's future is, like you can earn based off of like some of its competitors too. Like I mean,
Yeah.
if you're talking Balancer, like you're like talking about Ribbon, like all of these other projects that are starting to leverage, like really Hidden Hand, Pyrex, like you're making a bet on DeFi as a whole as opposed to Convex and CRV. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was just reading a tweet. I was reading a tweet from like the thing you tweeted DCF. Some guys like enjoying the convo. Is it like Sami that like speaks like this? I know I say like a lot, guys. I'm sorry.
I heard that the other day. Somebody was like, Sami coughs and he says like all the time. So I cracked up at it. I've called you out for coughing before in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that covers hidden in hand. Like, okay, you're obviously making money.
Yeah.
You're going to make money from this. You're already making money from this. That's great. The next big product out of the Redacted DAO is Pyrex. Do we want to talk a bit about that? Like, for me, I said like, for me, a big thing about Pyrex was I always saw it as I give you my Convex, you give me some sort of tokens to represent my future bribes. I can sell those tokens because they're now liquid. Whoever holds the tokens will be able to claim those bribes, and now you have this like liquid bribes market. But when I come to the site, I see a bunch of like things I don't understand, like PX Convex, Ucvx. You want to just give us like a quick rundown of what all these things mean and how people can use it?
Right, right. So I guess like some context on why we built Pyrex then, like, I think with a lot of these liquid wrappers, a reason they do trade below the peg is sort of because they don't have the intrinsic utility of like the actual token, right? And with Pyrex, one thing we have done is sort of make sure that the liquid representation of that token has all the intrinsic benefits of like the actual token itself, right?
Oh, nice.
So the Pyrex liquid wrapper can can be used for voting. It can be used for like accumulating bribes, and where Redacted wins is sort of on the fees that we generate, right?
And the fees meaning like part of the bribes, or where do you charge fees?
There's a fee that's taken on a part of the bribes with the llama guys,
Okay.
and there's a fee that gets taken on redemptions, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Okay. And redemptions meaning like the
Redeeming
convex
the
unlocks. I want underlying convex. I give you my PX convex. You give me convex, and I keep a piece of it, and you keep a piece of it.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so what is Pxcvx? So Pxcvx is the liquid representation of your convex, right?
Right.
Ucvx is what we launched in partnership with the Llama Air Force guys. So
Okay.
if you guys are familiar, you can like delegate your CVX to them. They take all the rewards and then they turn it back into like UCRV or UFXS or whatever the case is, right? Sorry, you give them those tokens and then they turn all the rewards back into that token, right? So CRV or
Right.
FXS.
Mhm.
And then there was like other liquid wrappers for CVX, but then the reason they ended up choosing to work with us is because we're completely neutral, right? We're not using the underlying CVX to like have any selfish like sort of we don't have any selfish reason to like hold that CVX, right? Like everything about that CVX is in the user's hands.
Yeah.
So UCVX is sort of the auto compounder. You can put your Pxcvx in there. The rewards that are generated by the bribes get turned back into like UCVX. So it's just an auto compounding vault. We thought it'd be cool to make it like a token, right? But like you could imagine it just like a vault or something, right?
Okay.
So it's a pretty big opportunity for you guys, the big unlock that's happening here at the end of the month. So like, I mean, you really, if you're going to be using Pyrex, it's with unlock CVX. So I mean, with all of that hitting the market, what ideally, if say either a project with a ton of CVX that's being unlocked or an individual, like what do you really recommend is like I would say path to get the most out of the position that you have?
I think one thing that's really important for us is to make sure that we have all the functionality of Pyrex out when the unlock happens, so that people know, like on the relock, we talked about this a bit earlier in the call. On the relock, we have more functionality that you can do with Pyrex than you could actually do with the VLCVX. Right now, like
Right.
anyone theoretically
Yeah.
could auto compound it themselves, right? But when we start releasing things like the futures market, where you can trade, buy, go long, leverage, short, all these sort of things, the bribes, right? All of a sudden, you have like a new primitive built on top of Convex, which you wouldn't be able to do with your CVX alone, right? So I think in order for us to like capture as much CVX as possible on that relock, we have to have all that functionality out, and we plan on doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. A few more questions. Because I know I got a little confused. So I'm sure other people got hella confused too. So I give you my convex, and I get Pxcvx. Are you then locking the convex for me? for
Mhm.
BL Convex?
Yeah,
Okay, so you lock the BL
yeah,
Convex.
exactly.
Then how does Llama get it? You then delegate the BL Convex to Llama?
No, we don't delegate the VL. We don't delegate the CVX to Llama, right? Like we, um, if you want to use Llama, then you would use the Ucvx token,
Oh, so
right? But if you want the liquid representation, right, that's Pxcvx. That's the one we've deployed the curve pool for.
right.
If you have CVX, go vote for us on our gauge vote, by the way.
Nice.
And yeah, yeah,
Oh, I understand. So I'm choosing, do I want UCVX or do I want PXCVX? I'm not getting both.
right,
Okay.
right.
Okay. So once I get PXCVX, I can't then say put this PXCVX as UCVX. It's just separate products.
No, no, you can, right? That's when you stake it.
Oh,
Oh,
you
so
can? So,
yeah,
And
I
unstake.
was I was just gonna say UCVX, like I think it's described in the docs as like easy mode. That's like, hey, if you just want to kind of like set it and forget it and like let Llama do the auto compounding.
mhm.
PXCVX is like, hey, like if you actually want an extra token for your yield and the possibility of selling your future bribes, and like if you're a little bit more, I would say advanced, and like you would go that route. Like that's kind of how I understood it. That I think simplifies it. If you really want to be messing with the actual like yield options yourself, then like PXCVX is the way that you would
Yeah.
go.
So there's three modes, right? Like we try to make it as simple as possible for people. Right. You have the easy mode, which is what we put out first, just so that people can get used to the system.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, right. Like essentially, people can just like do that auto compounding. I think most people just want that, right? Like that wasn't a feature before actually.
Right.
And
Okay.
most people do just want that, right? And then obviously, like the
And
PXCVX is sort of like that base token.
there's no difference on putting going to UCVX on your UI versus doing it on Llama. It's the same outcome.
Yeah, same outcome. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. And that just means that they'll sell all the bribes for more Convex and lock that.
exactly. For more PXCVX.
Okay. Yeah. Which is locked to CVX. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Um, Yep, that's awesome. Okay, and you expect the stake and redeem tabs for bribes to launch before the great unlocking in a few weeks.
Yeah, I mean it is coming out before the yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. And how much revenue do you expect to make from this?
Um it's a better question to ask like after the unlock happens. One thing we're really focusing on right now with like the Pyrex product as a whole is sort of like what the next um what the next market we expand to is, right?
Right.
So obviously like with the CVX one, like we are generating like a good amount of revenue based on like the TVL that's flown in now. And then when the unlock happens, it's really like a big question mark. Obviously, we have the best product out there. We expect to suck up like percentages of like the CVX supply through Pyrex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, we'll see. Like who knows what like the next Pyrex market is. Like we've thought a little bit about something like ETH, maybe like PX ETH or even like PX Frax or PX FXS. So it depends on sort of like what the next products we put
Nice.
out for Pyrex are.
Yeah, PX CVX is interesting because I don't think you have a lot of competitors for like liquid locked convex. There was like that one that came out a while ago that's tried to convex curve, but then I think they got hacked, right?
Bent.
Yeah, bent that one.
Mhm.
Was that
Yeah.
like the only competition, or is there something else?
I imagine there will be competition in like the near future when people see it working, right?
Right, right.
So
But for now, I
but
Yeah.
mean,
there
you
is
should
like
be the market
there is
leader
auto
here.
compounders, right? There is auto compounders that sort of came out like after we announced Pyrex, but um think like I said before, like because we're not using the CVX for any of our own benefits and giving all that power to the users, I think we have like the superior product here.
Yeah, you have auto compounding and you have unlocked bribes. I don't know why you would use anything else. That sounds great. How do
Yeah.
you plan on getting good liquidity for PX, CVX, CVX? I imagine it's less important because it's redeemable really quickly, not like 4 years or forever. But what's the plan?
Mhm. Yeah, so as like some of you guys know, like we are one of the top holders of CVX in terms of like DAOs that own CVX. Um, the original strategy was sort of like pointing it to OTC bribers or pointing it to like our own thing and just like pointing it to our POL and farming it. But we have enough CVX under our own holdings to sort of point this towards the PX CVX farm. So we again like hidden hand, it's not diluting to any of our holders to bootstrap this. But it should be like a pretty interesting farm for people, right? Where they can farm CVX against the Pxcvx and earn more CVX, right? So it should be one of the more interesting CVX farms, like going into like what seems like a bear, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for what you can do with other assets too. Like, I mean, this is just for CVX, but like when you're talking about all the different VE assets out there and unlocking some of their future yields, I think that kind of completely changes DeFi. I mean, it'll be super interesting. Go ahead. Sorry.
It plays off hidden hand too, right? So obviously with CVX, like the reason there's no convex hidden hand market is because it's a big undertaking to get more delegate votes from Vodium, right? But we want to be the bribe market for every single VE token, right? Which means that if Pyrex is there, essentially owning the asset and like auto compounding the yield that's generated by hidden hand, they play off really nicely off of each other, right? And then essentially where they're like every DeFi token, not only like facilitating the bribes, but at the same time like extracting the bribes from like our own product.
I mean, you guys become literally the cartel of liquidity, of just kind of no matter who's like needs liquidity, it's going to be done through you, and like no matter who wins in the liquidity market, it's going to be most likely done on your platform. I mean, I like it. Like I think I'm still wrapping my head around like what it means for the market. Like to me, like I think of like, hey, if we're gonna unlock all these future bribes and all these future rounds in like a market that we're sitting in like right now, I feel like a lot of retail is probably gonna offload those future rounds of rewards.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy them all. This sounds so good. I can't wait to buy people's future bribes for like half off what I think they'll be. It sounds like a RFE play almost.
I mean, that's about it. But you look at somebody like Frax, who's like a heavy briber. Like I could see them like scooping up a ton of rewards like super cheap.
Yeah.
But like it'll be very interesting to see how like that kind of plays out. Like I do think that it's gonna be one of those plays where if you sit down and like crank out the math of like when that unlock happens and sit in front of Pyrex and like run some numbers, like there's probably gonna be a pretty big ARB play to make. But like I don't know exactly how it's gonna play out or what that looks like yet. But I'm excited to see it. Like I think it, like I said, I really do think it's gonna change the space. So I'm pumped to see how it goes here at the end of the month.
Yeah. Now you just need to make it so I can borrow Convex against my Pxcvx, so then I can lock it for more Pxcvx, and I can get leveraged bribes. Let's go.
Cool.
999 on Pyrex.
Yeah.
Oh, I was actually poking like Sam from Frax's brain this morning because I think it was like DeFi Moon or someone like that tweeted about like CrvUSD. It got like hinted at that it's already in audits, but like it's like, all right, what does that possibly look like? Are you minting CrvUSD off of your LP position, or like could they possibly use some of the newer tech to like possibly liquidate you based off your VE positions, where you have maybe 1-to-1 in LP, but then you have to have so much, or like 0.5-to-1 in LP tokens, and the rest is your actual VE position that you can mint against. Like these like wrappers that allow you to kind of unlock the value of those VE tokens might allow you to do something like that. So I mean, I think it's super interesting with where like even the CrvUSD stuff's going, but kind of, you have any perspective on how you think I guess that launch would look of them having their own stable?
Yeah, that'd be wild.
I mean, I saw like in those screenshots too, right? Like they were talking about how like Michael won't liquidate himself or something, which gives me the impression that like it is backed by CRV, right?
Right.
Which is like a pretty interesting choice. Has something to do with VE curve. I would assume what they do with it is they try and like make it a replacement for 3curv, right? Where instead of people pairing against like 3curv and everything, they're trying to get people to pair against CrvUSD, and then they're using the protocol owned like VE curve to sort of direct emissions towards anyone who pairs against that.
I completely agree.
I would be lying. I'd be lying if I say I knew how it worked, right? But it was the obvious next step for Curve was to put out a stablecoin, right?
Well, yeah, I agree. And like, I mean, I think it's an interesting time for them to be allowing Frax to do the base pull, and then like they said like Michael won't liquidate himself. So I think it definitely has something to do with VE curve. So like the way I look at it is if you're curve and like you can mint CrvUSD against your VE position, you have a massive advantage, because if that's the only way that you can get it, that's the only way you can get CrvUSD. You're going to vote for yourself for those pools to have heavy gauged rewards. You're going to be some of the only ones that can mint it, and then you're also going to pair it with like the Frax base pool, which is going to get a ton of volume pushed through it then. So they're going to be the ones to replace the USDC, USDT, and maybe DAIs of the world. And I think that's the market that CrvUSD is targeting. I think it makes it super interesting. And I think some of the tech here could come into play, but that's completely small cap speculation for everybody out there. So I do that a lot, but yeah.
With Redacted team, we're just sitting here waiting to see what it is, because a lot of the time with these guys, no one knows what's happening. You can really just wait for it to release to understand how it really works and what the psyops is.
So perfect. Is it CryptoZilla in the chat goes win Dinero? So I think can we shake you down for some alpha on what's going on with Dinero?
He asked the question.
Yeah, blame CryptoZilla.
Right. So Dinero is our stable coin, right? As we finalize the V2 push, obviously the eyes are already working on V3, right? V2 push being the main two products of Hidden Hand and Pyrex, and obviously the tokenomics upgrade. And now we're thinking into the future of what does V3 look like, right? And the main thinking is sort of transcending DeFi. It sounds crazy when you say it, but I think I said this you talked about the base plate thing. Curve is very similar to Ethereum in many ways, right? Except instead of fighting over CRV emissions, you're fighting over block space, right? And Dinero, what we're trying to do without giving too much away, is sort of this over collateralized stable coin that's backed by custom Ethereum block space, right? So without, again, giving too much away, the way we're thinking about it is sort of creating an alternative to this is post-merge, or we can figure out a way to get it out pre-merge. But a user puts their ETH. I'm trying really hard not to give away too much, but a user can put their ETH into a CDP type system, and then that ETH is used to set up the redacted validator. And then I'll give hint words without saying everything, but the stable coin depends on EIP 712 to essentially allow the stablecoin to be used for meta transactions on the Ethereum blockchain, where you can essentially use it as an alternative to ETH, maybe, right? And because we are the validator and because we are routing the transactions, you could imagine a future kind of Flashbots, right? Where we have our own sort of private mempool or something, right?
Okay, that's a huge a ton of ETH, no?
We have a ton of ETH, but we have all the resources to do it. We have more CVX, we have more BAL, we have more Toki than every single DeFi project. We can bootstrap this without even putting a single dollar butterfly towards it.
Oh wow! And then you get a bunch of ETH. Yeah, it's almost the dollar is backed by the ETH, so it's safe. And then you run validators with that ETH, and then you can do custom stuff with it for people who hold that stable, basically.
Yeah, 100%, right? And okay, yeah, that's all I'll say.
I think that was good. That was good.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I mean, I think me, some other people in the chat, that's definitely a little bit more technical than I'm used to diving into. So I'm probably gonna have to rewatch this 4 times and take some notes to figure out what it all means. But
with Redacted, right? We don't try and build to me, DeFi is not a replacement to TradFi, right? It's an alternative, right? So there's no point in trying to be conservative with the experiments you make, right? We want to push the bar a little, right?
Yeah, it's a huge idea.
We want to do something unique, right? We're not trying to replace the dollar here or something.
Yeah, I love it.
I guess you don't have to answer if you don't want to give up too much on it. I won't pressure you anymore. But is it going to benefit butterfly holders, the actual Dinero?
Yeah. Well, obviously, right? All the fees, in this case, it's just ETH and stuff, right? Go back to the butterfly holders in the end, right? The same way it works for Hidden Hand and Pyrex.
I mean, that's pretty cool stuff, man. And
I'm curious how liquidations will work and all that kind of stuff, but obviously that's for another time.
Yeah. We we can't say the L word right now after the last few days.
That's fair. That's fair. Why don't we
It's
actually
been
end?
tough.
Why don't we end it with that question, Sammy? What's your thoughts on ETH? Are you buying? Are you considering it? Where do you think? Do you think we've bottomed here, or you just usually don't think about this stuff?
I try not to think about it for the sake of my mental health, but you know, it seems a bit premature for like a bottom. Hey, like it's the last bear market was like very long, right? And
Yeah.
there's obviously like no, I'm not a macro person, but it doesn't look good. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll say that. But I think for what it's worth, like alts have like like taken the hit like a lot harder than ETH, and obviously
Yeah.
like ETH going down hurts the alts more, but there's not much more to go for like alts, right? At least you'd hope so.
Right.
Yeah. I think one of the things from working with a redacted team though, like I've always been like super impressed at like kind of the knowledge base. Like I think Dinero is a good example of that just here in the last 5 minutes. But also like you guys grind. Like I think it's been one of the bags that I've felt more comfortable. I mean, even with the market being where it is, like that's a DCAing into the long term for myself. Like sure I'm a seed investor, but like also like hammering into that on the side. Like I think even if the macro is bad, like I think it's a pretty safe bet across DeFi, just because you are crushing into liquidity markets, like even outside of Curve and Convex and all of those. So, I mean, I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
like
like what are we gonna do? Like go talk to like the Federal Reserve or something, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that's like out of our control when it comes to like butterfly, right? But like I think all we can do here is just like build like super dope shit, and then as soon as the market goes green, like like we are like one of those DeFi projects that like did ship throughout the day, right?
Yeah.
That's what you hope.
yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I guess we can wrap there, but
No, I have one
and
more question before we wrap,
oh,
actually. I know you're
yeah.
expert on Tokemak ecosystem, and yesterday there was this tweet that was making rounds that I kept getting tagged in from Liquidity Wizard, where he was talking about how like Toke has more assets than its market cap. Um, how do you think about this? Because like Toke is vesting like crazy, and there's like such a high FDV. Do you think the price of Toke's going to be okay with this FDV becoming circulating, or do you think it doesn't really matter, or like how do they think about it? Just love your opinion on that tweet.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm really bullish on Tokemak as a concept. Right? I think one of the things that like really held them back was like perhaps like delays with like the product launch, and I can't blame them, right? Like it's not easy what they're trying to build.
Yeah.
But I think like the market. I think the market's waiting for something to come out of Tokemak, right? Like the liquidity drivers, right? Or directors, whatever they call them, the LDs. Um, and I think a lot of it, like product wise, like depends on that, right? Because that's when like real utility starts to come around Toke, right? As like its ability to direct liquidity. But the problem is like the longer they wait, um, the more TVL will shrink, right? So uh, it's an interesting one. It's definitely like one of the few like it's like definitely like a it's like a outlier in terms of like why Toki is going down compared to like the rest of DeFi.
Right. Right. Okay.
That's one of the most complex white papers I think I've ever read.
I will.
I just,
Yeah. I'll bother you some more about thinking about how their treasury works and things like that later. Maybe in the DMs or something. But
I mean,
that
the
is great.
treasury is printing, hey?
Yeah.
Treasury is printing.
It seems like it's growing. These guys have like 30 mil of assets. For me, it's just
Right.
like this FDV just seems insane, and I'm scared of it kind of being dumped on me. Otherwise, I like it.
It is a high FTV.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well,
Anything else you guys want to talk about, or does that cover everything for both of you?
I think I'm good. I think I did promise Sami that I would get him a Lambo with a butterfly on the hood when it reaches $1 billion market cap. So
Hey, we
I'll
almost
just
got
get
there.
that out there.
Let's
I
just do it
know, I
again.
know. I was sweating in a good and bad way. Like
Yeah.
when we went on a restaurant. But like honestly, super confident in the team to keep grinding through the bear. Like one of the more like actually probably one of the most talented teams that I've worked with in like all of DeFi. So keep grinding. You guys
Absolutely.
got
Yeah,
this.
shout out the whole team. If they listened to me and bought Anatas, like maybe we could have brought more of them here, hey?
Yo, that's what I'm saying. Right now, we're gonna be able to make babies. So Sammy, I'm definitely breeding with yours, by the way, unless you found yourself a suitable mate. I have a whole
I mean, I have
slew of
multiple. I have to
potentials.
like I have to breed it against my own.
Oh, you have your own. We can. I have more. Don't worry, I have multiple. We can like make babies with lots of our anitas. I'll send you pics, and you can choose who you like. You can swipe left or right. At Small
Okay,
Cap, we have
sounds
your
good.
honorary coming soon, so we can make a little baby with that one too. While we're on that topic, just before we shut down, would love to give everyone just a little quick preview of those. Let me just bring that up on the stream. I think I like tweeted it from my personal account, but yeah, here it is. Um, Here. So here's a little preview, if everyone can see the screen, of what the Chibis are going to be like. Ignore the nakedness, of course. Right now, the artists are just working on the head and hands. But you can see that like the head is extremely expressive. And with the hands, now you can literally move your fingers and it will track them. So like you can count. So it's really cool. Full face tracking, full hand tracking, all in the babies, or the Chibis. And they're really expressive. So like the eyes are really big. You can see they dance when they open and close. The mouths are huge. And we've added like more variables to the mouth tracking. So like you can move the corners of your mouth and things like that, and all of it will get tracked. It's not just like kind of open and closed. And yes, tongue tracking works on it too. So I think it's gonna be a really cool airdrop for all holders. Basically, you just choose someone to make a chibi with. You breed, you get airdropped an egg, and it'll be hatched into a little like combined version of yours. So get excited. That's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's it.
Sammy's will come out of a caterpillar
Let's
instead of an
go.
egg.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Appreciate the time. We'll have to have you back on after the unlocks. See how everything actually played out.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it, guys.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And Small Cap and I are going to do another episode this Friday. So we'll just be talking about trades we've made this week, where we're positioned, updates on some like the RFV stuff and things like that, updates on any stuff he's talked about in the past. This guy like single-handedly depegged ST ETH, so everyone can get pissed at him for that. But otherwise, we'll see you Friday.
Yeah. Good stuff. And don't forget to follow us on Twitch for those of you who are hanging out here. Appreciate you all.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.